Kung Fu Rainbow Laser Force.
We're reclaiming the rainbow!
Kung Fu Rainbow Laser Force, the upper middle class superhero team that protects your innocence any way they can. They are Tallulah, Sebastian Caden, Zoe, Quota, and Dirk.
We don't tolerate different.
We're heterosexual overdance!
Yeah!
Fighting evil in multicolored skin tight car off suspended.
Pow!
I'm happy to wait.
I don't even need to masturbate!
I dare off on the face of justice!
Sex is bad.
And violence is good!
Gonna save the neighborhood from sex.
Kung Fu Rainbow Laser Force.
May I have your attention for a very important public service announcement. We are taking over the internet, and the United States champion of word wrestling entertainment has returned for another edition of the Pocket Locker podcast. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, good people, I am in airplane mode. Y'all already know what to do. Grab something to drink, grab something to smoke, greet your neighbor, especially if your neighbor's Cameron Bennett. It's time to link up with the gang as we jump into the musical portion of the program. Happy Halloween, fam. Cheers to you and yours.
Under the moonlight, you see a sign that almost stops your heart. You try to scream, but terror takes a sound before you make it. You start to freeze as horror lurks you right between your eyes. You're paralyzed, 'cause this is real life at night, and no one's gonna save you from the beast about to strike. Yeah, real life at night, you're fighting for your life inside a killer thriller tonight. Night creatures come and the dead start to walk in the masquerade. There's no escaping the jaws of the alien.
Oh, we're moving house.
This is the end of your life.
Damn, good luck with that. That's a lot of work.
They're out to get you.
Hope it's going well.
In on every side. They will possess you unless you change the number on your dial. Now is the time for you and I to cuddle close together. All through the night, I'll save you from the terror on the screen. I'll make you see that this is real life at
Hi guys.
Hell yeah. That was fucking nice. All right, y'all. Look, we gonna keep it weeknight tight. Let's jump straight into the main event of the evening. Y'all, I must have had the wrong holiday. Because when I seen this video that we reviewing today, I would have swore it was April Fool's Day. But no, instead it's Halloween. And what we're going to be looking at, gang, I don't know if it's a trick or a treat, but it's definitely something going on. It's definitely something going on. We are looking at the latest and greatest for Rebekah Davis's campaign to rebrand Christianity as pro-LGBTQ. Now, let's go ahead and get a few disclaimers out of the way right up front. Some stuff I shouldn't even have to say, but we're going to say it anyway. First off, of course, I think it's better that Rebekah Davis considers herself an ally of the LGBTQ fam than the alternative. That should go without saying. Also, y'all seen it. I clapped a few times. I gotta support her effort to actually, bring this message of acceptance to other people in the Christian circles. It's commendable not to just say you're pro LGBTQ, but to actually try to go at fixing the problems in the church. Okay, so kudos to her for that. But we're here to talk about the fact that that effort fails miserably due to just who she is. One, that just being a totally disingenuous, dishonest person, and the nature of the circumstance, which is that she's just wrong about this issue. And I was thinking about this earlier today when I saw this, and I just got to be honest with y'all. Christianity would be better if it was accepting of everyone. And by better, I just mean less of an existential threat to humanity. But it isn't. It just isn't. It isn't pro LGBTQ. So you are Christ washing the bigotry in this faith, and in doing so, being grossly insensitive to the realities that actual LGBTQ people are facing right now. And I think we'll see as we go through this that we're now able to bring some nuance to this conversation. We got to stop looking at it as an all or nothing proposition. We got to stop looking at it and saying, okay, this person over here is what? They're dropping bricks on the head of every queer person they see. Oh yeah, that's fucked up. What? This person over here thinks we shouldn't hang them from a tree. Yeah, this person's great. Like, yes, it's good to not hate, but we also have to be critical about what you're doing within this space and how you're going about your advocacy. So let's go ahead and jump into this video we have here from Miss Davis. I don't even know what to say about this, but we're gonna let Rebekah speak for herself. All right, let's hit it with the Autobots transform. Then we got to roll out. Boop. Okay. Then we got to blow up. Wait. Boop. Man. I got this routine down. All right, let's go ahead and roll this tape.
Want to know what God was doing last weekend? He was hanging out with his precious people in Nashville, Tennessee at the Reconcile and Reform Conference. So I had the most wonderful opportunity to go to this conference.
All right,
And
pause the
it
tape.
was-
Pause the tape. Pause the tape. We already gonna jump into a couple of things right away. First off, religion is the worship of your own ego. How do I know? Because you're just so excited that God had, of all the things God could have been doing last weekend, he had to make sure he was right by Rebekah's side at this conference. Also, please tell God to go fuck himself. There is a war going on in Ukraine. There is a war going on in Gaza. There is all types of misery and disease and poverty and suffering going on in the world right now. And how many of these people in these situations are on their knees daily, nightly, and even in the noontime, praying for God to come and reconcile this situation? But no, he was too busy at the Reform and Reconcile Gay Conference for Christians. Never mind showing out in the actual bigoted churches on a Sunday morning. Like, apparently he didn't head to First Baptist last Sunday and tell them to quit being assholes. He didn't hit up the Congress and tell the Congress to stop passing LGBTQ legislation. Nah, but he came to the conference just so they could show out and have a good time in the Lord. Okay. All right.
just amazing. So the Reconcile Reform Conference is put on by the Reformation Project. And for those who are not familiar, the Reformation Project is an organization that is seeking to be a church and God honoring organization that fights for LGBTQ inclusion in the church. And it is a wonderful organization. In every 2 years, they put on this conference. And it is just, this was my first time going. And so anyway, I just,
all right, so there's one of my problems. Gang, I'm gonna have a lot of problems with this, man. A lot of problems. I'm telling y'all that right up front. First off, the name sucks. The Reconcile, Reform, Repentance, Renumeration Conference of the biblically refined. Like, no. Like, why y'all gotta keep everything on the hush hush with this weird Christianese in their name and in their titles and all of that? It just hits me kind of weird. But I was thinking about this earlier, like, because I didn't even pay attention to this detail where she said they had this conference every 2 years, because a lot of conferences they have every 1 year, like once a year, annually. And that's a big part of my problem with this. A big part of my problem with this is these sort of progressive prog rock Christians. I just made that up. I'm calling them prog rock Christians. I don't know why. And these organizations, see, it's all good when they keep everything inside their little safe huddle. It's all good when they want to make their little YouTube videos, have their little discussions, have their little conferences. Okay, but any of us that's ever been to a con for something, we know that's a rare experience, right? Like, you're a furry. Let's keep it real. Y'all know it's hard to be a furry out here. And them conferences is really important, because when you go to the conference and you're like, is it really okay for me as a 47-year-old virgin to be out here in a Pikachu costume? Like, you don't want to get harassed for being in my Pikachu costume. When you go to a furry conference, oh, it's just people are dressed in costumes and they're cosplaying and everybody's doing their thing, and it's normal. It's normal to be like that. You're just like everybody else. But the real ones know when that conference is over, it's back to the real world where they're blasting you on Fox News for asking to have a litter box in the school bathroom. Times are rough. And that's what this is like. They get together in their little conferences and little discussions, and Christianity is just draped in the rainbow flag, and the blood of Jesus is rainbow, and everybody's holding hands, and like 3 or 4 of the disciples is probably LGBTQ, and it's all good, and everything that's against the LGBTQ in the Bible is all just a misunderstanding, and we're all loved and we're all encouraging. No. Because this conference is going to end. And it's not even going to be another year. It's going to be another 2 years before people get back in a setting like this. And what do you think is going to be happening to them in the meantime? This is where we got to stop playing around. If you really love somebody, you got to love somebody. And love is that which protects people from harm, not pushes them into the harm. The truth is, as a former Christian, I would never gaslight my LGBTQ fam by trying to pretend that Christianity isn't LGBTQ. I tell y'all straight up on this channel all the time, one of my moral failings as a younger man was not leaving Christianity because of its LGBTQ bigotry off rip. There are certain things you're supposed to be a single issue voter about. It's certain things you're supposed to see. They're supposed to be unacceptable to you. You're supposed to be like, I'm out, and I would never be part of a group that does no shit like this. And that's how I should have treated Christianity. But I didn't. But now that I left and I understand and I'm wiser, nah. No. The bigotry in Christianity alone is enough to shut it down. And if you care about these people, if you really, really cared about them, you would want to protect them from the harm that the church has done to them, and you will not be sending them into the church to receive more harm. You would know that the church has failed these people and that they have every reason to walk away, and they should walk away and they should stay away. Because this isn't really about them for her. This is about doing PR for Jesus, Christ washing this whole thing, pretending it's all a big misunderstanding so that they can feel good about their faith. That's what this is. Rebekah and the rest of the progressives, they want to feel good about Jesus. That's what this is about. And they can't feel good if Jesus doesn't really love everybody. So instead of staring the fact that apparently Jesus doesn't really love everybody in the face, they'll just pretend it's something that it ain't. And that's what I'm here to criticize. I'm glad Rebekah is not a hater herself. I mean that really. I think she's wrong. She's so wrong. Like 2 + 2 is fire truck wrong. But I'm glad her heart is not filled with hate for these people. But if you really want to try to convince us you love them, you have to be honest about what's going on in the church.
Share a little bit about my experience, how I saw God show up at this conference. Now, for those who are not familiar with the term God showed up, I don't want you to think I'm giving you clickbait. God showed up does not mean that God appeared physically or in a vision or anything like that. God showed up is Christianese. And so if you hang around Christians long enough, you will learn that Christians kind of have a language of talking to each other, and we call it Christianese. And there are dialects of Christianese.
Gang, is she not giving the whole game away? This is what I mean, yo, Christians, y'all gotta stop sleeping on Rebekah, because Rebekah low-key be telling on y'all. She be telling on y'all. Because y'all really, she's telling y'all flat out, I gotta see this again.
Showed up. Now, for those, and this was my first time going. And so anyway, I just am going to share a little bit about my experience.
So good. Say it again.
I saw God show up.
You saw, again, Christians always want to pass this shit off. They always want to say, God was there. The Spirit was moving. God is in this place. I saw God move. And you know we got to be like, God didn't show up. And then she gives the whole game away.
Right. Now, for those who are not familiar with the term God showed up, I don't want you to think I'm giving you clickbait. God,
silly non-believer, silly atheist. We don't mean God actually showed up. Like, so then what are we supposed to be impressed by? Like, this is what I mean about vapors. Just vapors, just meaningless, empty vapors. God showed up. Oh, that doesn't actually mean, no kidding. You mean when Christians say God showed up, it doesn't mean God physically showed up? Really?
God showed up does not mean that God appeared.
It doesn't mean God actually showed up
in a vision or anything like that.
Of course it doesn't.
God showed up is Christianese. And so if you hang around Christians long enough, you will learn that Christians kind of have a language of talking to each other, and we call it Christianese. And there are dialects of Christianese. And so my particular dialect of Christianese is charismatic Christianese. And we say things like God showed up. And what I mean by that is that God's presence was real. It was clear that God was at work.
Gang, if you're sitting over there scratching your head, but thinking charismatic Christianese, but Becky ain't got no riz. You would be correct. But the Christianese, see, she's describing her Christianese in Christianese. And in Christianese, charismatic just means a particular type of faith where they get gifts of the Holy Spirit, and those gifts of the Holy Spirit make their particular style of faith and worship charismatic, because they get these great charismatic gifts like prophecy and music and laying on hands and speaking of tongues and interpreting tongues. See, a lot of other churches be like, we don't really mess with all that craziness. That sounds a little weird. But they believe that they get filled with those charismatic gifts. But I'm not feeling it. But like I know Rebekah's nice. Y'all. But nah, when you get to know this woman, nah, Becky got no riz.
Love was felt, and it was just amazing. So that's what I experienced at this conference. And I have to say that it's probably the best corporate experience of God's presence that I've had in a very long time. And I've traveled around to a
Pause the tape. I can't let it go. First off, she's so excited about the worship. That was the most presentful. Oh, that was the best worship. But Rebekah, the church is not feeling this. The church is not having this. How many of y'all remember what was it called? The Ashland revival? Right, there was that recent revival at that school. What was that revival? I'm probably messing up the name of this school. Asbury. That's what it's called, the Asbury Revival. And look, let me show y'all this tab real quick. Make sure I switch the right thing over. Look at this right here. We review videos like this. And here's a whole bunch of videos you could read about, watch. And they're crapping all over the Asbury Revival. Mind you, this was this big revival, some Christian kids at a Christian school. Like, Christians, y'all so unimpressive. God damn, y'all are so unimpressive. Because literally they're like, it's such a work, a miracle of God that God showed up and moved on a college campus. You mean we supposed to be impressed that the Christian God showed up to move in a Christian chapel, at a Christian worship service, at a Christian campus full of Christian kids? Very unimpressed. Very unimpressed. But nevertheless, they was losing their mind over this. People started driving in from out of state. People literally flew in and came from different countries, y'all, because they were so convinced that God was doing the work. God showed up. Okay, God showed up. That you're supposed to know that don't mean he showed up. It just means it's Christianese for the Spirit was moving in the place and it became a holy place because it was filled with his presence. Wait. Not his presence. It was just he was there and he was inside of the people and you could feel him in the not inside the people. Y'all see the problem with Christianese? It's anti-language. Words come out and you lose information. Language is supposed to be like, the more I say to you, the more the picture gets filled in. I'm hungry. I'm so hungry, I think I want to eat as soon as the stream is over. I already preheated the oven. When I get off, I'm putting the chicken tenders in the oven. Then I'm going to make some rice to go with the chicken tenders. And I'm going to put some condiments on it. Do you see how you just got more and more information as I talked? And I just filled in more and more details of the picture. And now you're like, Jay, I really don't care what you're going to have for dinner. But God damn, you like visually, you could probably smell it. You probably know it's going to smell like. You probably got ideas about what the condiments is going to be already. That's how information works. Christianese don't work like that. No, don't work like that all over. You be like, the Lord is here, but he's not here. The Spirit is moving. That doesn't mean he's moving. Jesus came down and touched me. That doesn't mean he touched me. It's a problem. Now, anyway, where are we going with this Asbury thing? The conservative Christians crapped all over this big, huge, famous revival. Why, y'all? Simply because some of the worship was being led in part by people who were LGBTQ. To them, as soon as they saw that LGBTQ people were involved in the worship leading, they're like, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. This ain't of God. Nope. This is not of God. Gang, go back and see the stream we did this weekend. Hot Program was another classic this weekend. But look, we talked about Christians get ugly when Christians aren't ugly. And that's what I'm talking about with her. Like, she's literally trying to sell us that they had the best worship ever. It was incredible. It was so God was moving all in that place. But again, when she talks to the real Christians, they are going to be unconvinced that the best worship she ever experienced in her life was at a gay conference. This is why I'm telling y'all, it doesn't work. It sounds nice. It sounds really nice, but it doesn't work because nobody's convinced.
Conferences in the past, especially being charismatic, we love to throw together a good
right. You know what I'm talking about, Chris? I need
conference
some of
and
them donations.
just enjoy the presence of God. this conference was really special. So
No,
I'm just
I'm
gonna
actually
share.
I'm actually eating the stuff that's just been in my freezer forever because I need to get groceries, and I ordered my groceries too late, so they're not gonna come till tomorrow. So I was like, we're gonna have to rough it tonight.
Some of the ways that God showed up at this LGBTQ affirming conference. And so I'll just start with one of, I think, the highlights of the conference. There were many speakers and, just great things that happened. The highlight for a lot of people that I talked to was this
Smash that like button.
speech by Tim Oyang. Tim Oyang is a Christian. He's a Christian artist. He was the worship leader at his church, and he wrestled with being gay for many years. He believed God hated him. He really, he struggled for a long time, and in some ways still struggles to accept and really internalize the love of God for him. And I heard about Tim Oyang last year, and listened to some of his music, and his music is very powerful. If you listen to his music, you just you can experience real authenticity in his experience with God. But I heard his story last year, and it was a story really of victory, of struggle, but then victory. But when he shared what he's been going through this past year, I realized, wow, just when I was learning about Tim and thinking of his story as a story of victory, of coming to realize that God affirms him as a gay man, I also realized that just because someone struggles and has victory doesn't mean that their struggle is over forever. And Tim he shared that he's been going through a struggle even this past year, just to really just still wrestling with issues with his faith. And, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted.
And see, this is the not seriousness of all of this. This is the not caring I'm talking about. This is when you just don't hear, and it's just all about PR for the church. Why has this man struggled his whole life? Again, y'all, just a disclaimer. Y'all know I like them women, but I keeps it 100% around this channel. I'm looking at a very handsome man, probably very articulate, probably got a lot going for himself. He's the worship leader. I don't care what they say about worship leaders. We're not all failed musicians. A lot of worship musicians really get down like that. So the man has talent. What has he been struggling with his whole life? He's been struggling to accept himself, struggling to accept his identity, struggling to accept that he was okay and worthy of love. Why? Simply because he was gay. And where was he getting that messaging from? The church. The solution to abuse by the church is not more church. And a lot of these people just have Stockholm syndrome. I'm gonna just call it what it is. It is this need to be accepted, this need to be loved, and it's so strong. And mostly, a lot of it, I think, is just family ties. I'm gonna keep it just family ties. Grandma's a Christian, Ma was a Christian. They grew up in the church. When you're like him, you're a worship musician. Y'all don't know what being a worship musician really means. It means you are preparing for church service all week long. You are always active in the church. I used to tell people, yeah, everybody wants to be the drummer on Sunday morning because everybody's worshiping and singing and throwing their hands up in the air, and I'm making it look like I'm having a ton of fun on stage with the band because I'm having a ton of fun on stage with the band. But I always tell people I'm the drummer of this church 7 days a week. I mean, I'm talking about Sunday services where after Sunday service is over, I go home, take a nap, watch a football game, get up and start practicing again. Thursday college night service. Yeah, we just crushed that Thursday night service. I go home, grab a slice of pizza and start practicing again. So my man is in the church. He's serving the church. Of course he wants to belong. And it's like eventually they just were so desperate for it that they just start like making up these reconciliations. But it's really sad that people who are so clearly hated and mistreated by a group, you know, torment themselves to be accepted by that group rather than just being like, fuck this, I'm out.
Distracted by the chat. I'm gonna say hello to some people really quick, and I might have to block somebody. I don't like to do that, but if people are rude or abusive, I have to do that. But anyway, hello to Brian Stevens. He said he couldn't be here to watch this, but I want to greet him, and I hope he watches it later. Hello, Roya. Good to see you.
That's exactly
Andre,
the
so
thing,
glad
Steph.
you're here. Kevin and Kevin, 2 Kevins that I love, and wow. Okay, the preacher, might have to block him later. Humble thinker, might have to block him later. Anyway, but I'm so I hope that people
Yo, the
will.
block energy is strong with Rebekah. I give her props for that. You know, I'm the same way. Y'all know me. I ain't shy about the block button. Come through here, acting a fool. You don't have very long. Your days are numbered. Well, matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you straight up, your comments are numbered. For some of y'all, your comments are numbered to 1. Say like one thing I really don't like, right? I'll just ban you. I don't really care. So look, that's something we have in common. We are not afraid of that block button.
Listen, and Titan Uranus says it's not true. I was not at that conference. I don't know, Titan. Are you saying you're God? But anyway, so Tim Wu Yang, you know, he shared his experience of his struggle this past year, where he got a very debilitating physical
Isn't that
illness
insane, Crystal?
that was causing him to be dizzy, and he like couldn't perform like basic functions like
YouTube punk
walking,
Rebekah
and
done blocked
he
all of
was
us.
really suffering. And he realized that it was still it was
She blocked all
connected
my alt
to
accounts and
his
everything.
spiritual struggle with church and faith and everything. And he shared an experience that he had going to a Christian retreat, not expecting anything to happen for him. And it wasn't even a Christian retreat that he was excited about. He only went because he didn't want to be alone that weekend. And he had some friends that were going, but he really wasn't expecting to receive anything from that retreat because it was like a non-affirming church that was putting on the retreat. It was, you know, just he didn't like know the main speaker. But what was amazing is that the speaker actually of the retreat had, when he was preaching, Tim said it was like he was preaching right to me, and God like spoke to him so profoundly, so specifically, that he was just crying and just sobbing by the end of the sermon. And afterward, he introduced himself to the preacher, and the preacher said, you know, I'd like to talk to you for a minute. And Tim shared his story with him. And then
All right, gang. Again, let me break down a little multi-level marketing, little pickup artistry, little salesmanship. There are so many different people in throughout society, none of them do we really hold in high regard, who basically employ cold reading tactics for a living. And preachers are just like that. And we have got to stop being impressed. Like, when a preacher gets up there and talks about, somebody out there's just been struggling with their sin, because everything's a goddamn sin to these people. And somebody and you've been going through hard times with your relationships. And sometimes it feels, no matter how much you apply yourself, no matter how hard you work, you're just not getting fulfilled by your work, by your career. Something about grinding and grinding and grinding all day just isn't filling your soul. Like what? And you recently lost somebody close. None of us should be impressed that there's people that always go, it's like he's talking, he's like he's reading a page out of my diary. And then that the people who are most touched by your cold reading then come talk to you after your speech and give you chances to follow up. I mean, this is just all so, it's just kind of sad that we're so gullible, and I've been there. That word in the church has definitely gotten good to me. And I felt like that preacher somehow, he may not know that, he may not even know me, man, but whoo, he was strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly. All right, y'all know, y'all get the point.
Preacher said, I wasn't going to tell you this, but when I was preparing for this sermon, I felt like God, he's like, I heard a voice from God telling me, preach to Tim. And he said, the preacher said, when God spoke that to me, I felt this overwhelming love that I've never felt in my life. I've never felt the love of God like that for myself, but I felt God's love for you. And so the preacher, had shared this sermon that had very specific things that were just for Tim. And I wish you guys could all hear this because it was amazing. But that also helped Tim get over this physical sickness. So he, realized that there was this connection with feeling like God was rejecting him and having a problem really internalizing the love of God for him. And when he heard this sermon and heard that the preacher had
Park, I should be getting my my boss is sending me I just ordered a new mixer and stuff to get the sounds going again. This I'm using a different computer than I used to, and it doesn't I can't use all multiple inputs, but we're fixing it. That's it.
By God, it actually helped him to get healed from his physical sickness. And so he talked a lot about, how we have a protective armor that really keeps us from experiencing God's love. We might have God's love, the knowledge of God's love in our heads, but getting it to our heart is a very different matter. And so that is so true. I mean, I know that's true for me. There's been many times when I have experienced God's love, but it's not something I experience every day.
But again, this is more Christianese, more anti-information, because when they say experience God's love, it doesn't really mean experience. They have it in their head, but it's not in their hearts. Gang, this is not how those of us talk about real love. Again, this is just more, my girlfriend's hotter than your girlfriend, but she goes to a different school. You see me and my girlfriend in the hallway. When I say I feel her love in my heart, yeah, I just got the tension because we got caught making out under the fucking bleachers. Okay, that's feeling someone's love. Well, this is it's just more of this cultness, and I just don't think that what our queer family members need is a cult. They just don't need this. And I find this all grossly irresponsible because Christianity is the heart of the problem. I can't say that the KKK is, the heart of racism in America, or that they like caused most of the racism. But y'all know that they're synonymous with racism. Y'all know when we think of racism and racial terror, we have some new school groups, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, whatever that might pop up on your radar. But y'all know the KKK is going to be first and foremost in your mind. And that is where we're at with Christianity in this issue. The reason that our LGBTQ fam live under perpetual threat of literally ritualized violence is because of this church. Y'all are the reason most people are bigoted like this. So yes, y'all need to get this together. Y'all need to stop being this way. Y'all need to work it out, but you need to do so without propagandizing the church to the queer community, without pretending like we're going to make the church a safe space for these people, knowing that that is not going to happen. And if you really cared about these people, you would want to keep them from this harm. No, Rebekah wants you to walk into the harm and just, bear it, grin and bear it. That's what she wants you to be like, just grin and bear it because Jesus really loves you.
And so, there's times when it's hard to get to actually feel and experience God's love for you. So I was so blessed by hearing his experience, and I think so many people were too. So that was awesome. And he also shared a really awesome song that he wrote based on this experience. It's called Breath of God.
Yeah, that's true stuff. I think she's preaching to people
beautiful.
like Sal for sure.
So the next speaker that I want to mention is Ty Herndon. I guess Ty Herndon is a pretty popular country singer. I don't listen to country music that much, or not at all. So I didn't know who Ty Herndon was, but he shared his experience of coming out as a gay Christian. And he also shared some struggles that he had and was very vulnerable in just even things that he's experienced recently. And that's one thing that characterized this conference. It was so awesome because a lot of times, I don't have to compare it to other Christian things, but, in this conference, I felt like people were really being vulnerable about their experiences, willing to share the deepest struggles that they've had. And, that's a blessing. Because, Christianity, it's not all just happy times and, all is well. No, people have really hard experiences in their faith journey. And it is nice to see people who are not just putting on a happy face, but willing to, just let other people into their deepest struggles. So
yeah, I know they
was,
broke up, Nitty.
like,
we did a stream
blown
on
away
it. It's
with
hilarious.
Ty Herndon's
It
testimony.
was actually very good.
There's another country
Very funny
singer that
day.
showed up. I also didn't know who she was, but I guess she's also a popular country singer, Brooke Eden, who came out as gay and is married to a wonderful woman that she has known for a long time and recently got married. And so it was really awesome to hear her. And there were a lot of other speakers that I'm probably not going to mention, but I want to mention these two groups. This was a gay couple and their pastor, along with Matthew Vines. If nobody knows who Matthew Vines is, he's the founder of the Reformation Project, the founder of this organization. And he's sitting next to a pastor who they shared how this pastor went from non-affirming to an affirming position with the help of this gay couple that attended his church. And so I thought this was a precious testimony of how God can work and how God can bring an evangelical Christian who is not affirming but really has compassion and care for his flock to understand, deeply identify, and actually change his position on LGBTQ. And for those Christians out there who think, no, this is, never going to happen. Evangelical Christianity broadly is never going to accept LGBTQ affirmation. I think you need to accept the fact that this is the future of the church. God is going to use LGBTQ Christians, and you should be a part of that. And I mean, the leadership, the love, the grace that was present at this conference is where the church needs to go and where it will go if it's going to survive.
Okay, this is where this all gets difficult for me. It really does. First off, it's embarrassing that we're even having this discussion. It's 2023, and she's literally having to name and claim that the future of the church is going to be accepting. Like, it's 2023 and they're not accepting now, but one day in the future, the church is going to be accepting. It's just, that's the problem. The hurry up and wait. I really don't think, and again, it's just my opinion, but I don't think this is a healthy situation for the gay Christian. I just think they're doing way too much tap dancing, way too much cognitive dissonance, way too much bending over backwards to accommodate these people. It also really reminds me of the Daryl Davis situation, where he's going to the KKK rallies, he's buddying up with the KKK. A number of them are, I guess, sending him his robes in leaving the KKK, and then everybody's losing their shit over it. Like, it's the greatest thing ever. When the net gain of those individuals no longer being racist, just, I think I've come to realize is meaningless to most Black people. It's very meaningless. Like, I know that every single person that's not a physical threat to people is better. Okay, but what are we doing to get those people to change? And I think for most of us, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. To me, it's better to condemn the whole organization and work against condemning the whole. I don't expect everybody to agree with that, but that's where I'm at. To sit here and be like, oh, it's 2023. Now let's sit down and have a reasonable dialogue so that by 2050, you guys can become queer accepting. Nah, like you've had your chance and you fucked it up. And that's what I mean. Like, I think it's, so that to me is just ridiculous. But on top of that, like, I don't think she's right. I don't think this is the future of the church. I think the future of the church may get marginally more accepting, but I don't think acceptance is the future. I just don't think it is. I really don't think it is, because I think these people are lying to themselves about the faith. And that's the problem. One, you're dealing with the cult. You're dealing with the fact that their faith is not true. So all of these people are just trying to coerce people into continuing to be in their cult. Me personally, like, I'm not with it. Because it's not doing any good. You know, she's using the honey, she's using the bait to get these people into a situation that's not safe for them. And I just think at the end of the day, this bigotry is at the core of the faith. And so you're fighting a losing battle. And I do not think it's reasonable to ask people to sacrifice like this to prove your point. So it's a tough situation, but I don't think it's the future of the faith at all. And in the meantime, I think a lot of people are going to continue to be hurt, and I think the church is going to continue to oppress LGBTQ people. And I think Rebekah knows that, and I think these people know that, and they kind of just had this fart sniffing conference to sit around and feel better about themselves. But I don't see this happening.
Jesus said in the book of Revelation, he talks to a church and he says, you know,
Nitty, but see, that's
things,
I didn't
this
mention him in particular, but that's a perfect example of exactly what I've been thinking about. Is exactly. And let's compare the platform of her Bread of Life channel to the speakership of the U.S. House of Representatives, right? I mean, and that's what I'm saying. And they weren't doing anything about that. This conference doesn't do anything about that. And I don't even think that they will. I don't think they're serious. Like that's like you know, I don't have to wait, but I can tell you now. That's sort of my overall feeling about this whole movement, is that it's very it's very much about celebrating people who already agree with you. And it's the progressive Christians who feel so great about the fact that they're affirming. And then the marginalized people who, to me, don't have the, I don't know if gumptions, that they don't have the whatever. They're not tooled enough to leave this cult. You know, in an ideal world, they do some critical thinking, they do some critical reflecting, they'd realize for themselves that this cult is, in fact, against people like them and has been a source of oppression for people like them, and they would leave. But they're so hooked into this thing that they've got to stay. And so now that they're in this marginalized position within the church, to me, they're desperate to be affirmed. So again, I don't want to come against individuals who are affirming, but this is a desperate situation. You have people who are victimized by the church, who are just looking for some warm and fuzzy, somebody to actually be nice to them. And then you have, you know, the affirming Christians. And to me, they get together and they feel great when they're together, and they have great praise and worship and great lunches and all of this type of stuff. But they're not dealing with the reality of the situation. And I think the reality of the situation overwhelms the effort that they're making. And I'm gonna just be honest with you, I feel the same way about Black people. I feel the same way about Black people. I can't deal with the fact, like, my own family is caught up in this Christian cult, and I think it's the worst. I think these American Christians enslaved our ancestors. These American Christians have opposed the progress and liberation and equality for Black people at every fucking turn. But, I was just letting my dog out, and there's a church across the street, a Black church across the street, and there's all these like sweet old ladies coming out of it, and they're all waving, and they're super nice, they're super lovely people. Hey, it's good to see you, da 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 da, whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, these people are fucking pathetic. They're just people that are they've been so coerced, so brainwashed by this cult that I just have to like accept that they're fucking clueless and like be kind to them. So yeah, I'm like being kind to them. I don't mind being kind to them, but I'm honest with myself about the patheticness of it all. That this is going to sound bad, but like, we all know that there's situations in life when you see somebody and they're just in something and they're so into it that it's like you just let it go, right? Because you don't think that they have the resources or the tools or the opportunities necessary to do better for themselves. That's what this reminds me of. Like having a friend who has schizophrenia, who is so convinced that there's people chasing him and following him that eventually you just say, hey, well, look, I'm going to take you somewhere they can't find you. You don't believe there's anybody chasing and following you. I'm going to take you somewhere they can't find you. You'll be safe here with me. Right? Like, yeah, you're being kind to them. You're compassionate. But if we're being honest, it's because in a certain place in your head, you've realized, you've resigned yourself to the fact that they're just in such a pathetic place that we have to let this go. And that's kind of how I feel. And that's why this whole thing is a mess to me.
It's against you. You have left your first love. Repent and see how far you've fallen before I come and remove your lampstand from its place. Now, evangelical Christianity has a great history of caring about the good news about Jesus Christ and about focusing on Christ as Savior and loving Jesus Christ. But when evangelical Christians turn away from gay and trans LGBTQ Christians, they are turning away from the love that God has for his people. And God is saying, repent, see how far you've fallen, because these are people that God cares about and he's going to use. Don't let Jesus Christ remove your lampstand. And the lampstand is really a metaphor for these individual churches that are supposed to be shining the light of Christ. And if you're not shining the light and love of Christ, you are in danger of Jesus removing you from your
But again,
place.
pause the tape. This is where the non-affirming Christian is just going to say, I am shining the light of Christ and I'm loving them enough to tell them the truth. We've all heard this a million times. We already know what the response is. And this is what I mean. Like, it's in the book. It's in the book. And Rebekah herself and most of the people on these stage are going to sit there and talk about the authority of the Bible in their life. And that's the other problem I have with these people. Is these are the type of people that want to have their cake and eat it too. If I ask these gay Christians and their affirming friends, well, what about these passages in the Bible? They're going to tell me they're misinterpretations. They shouldn't be taken literally. Our understanding of morals have evolved. Da, 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 da. Okay, well, now I'm just ready to throw out the book. Oh, no, right? Honestly, most Christians, like, what the fuck, man? Let's be real. Let's just keep it a buck. Let's just keep it a buck. If you're a Christian, to me, you're anti-science. You just are. You just are. Period. You just are. So again, you want me to not take the anti-homosexuality passages literally, but you believe we were created by a God? Because I just think that's a bunch of nonsense. So I got to take the parts where we were created by God literally. I got to take Jesus needing to be sacrificed and die on a cross and come back 3 days, and he's building his kingdom. I got to take all that literally. I mean, it's just too much for me. And that's my thing. I just think these people, like black people, like women, let's just take the chains off. Christianity has just been chains to us. It's just been chains and chains and chains, generation after generation after generation after. I don't want to see the next generation of Christians be incrementally more gay. I want to see all of us out the church. All of us out the church. And again, like, I don't know how they win this battle, and I'm just being honest. I don't think they do. I think the church is actually anti-LGBTQ. I think it really is. I think that the Bible is super fucking prejudiced. I don't buy the misinterpretation argument, and I don't think most Christians do. And let's keep it real. Even the Sal situation speaks to this. Rebekah was Sal's honeypot. Rebekah is the best thing Sal has going on the internet. Sal is unwatchable without Rebekah. Unwatchable. And you know he was relying on her community to bring viewers and attention to the stuff he was doing. Go look at the numbers on Sal's channel. They're pathetic. So Sal was willing to give up his meal ticket because that's how serious most Christians take this non-affirming thing. I just don't think it's going to happen, gang.
You are not going to survive as a church if you fail to love the people that God loves. If you fail to love gay and trans and queer people, Jesus Christ is going to remove you from being the light that shines for him. So I hope to see more evangelical churches willing to deal with the hard issues and willing to be like this pastor was, where he wasn't sure what, he went from a position of non-affirming to affirming, but he was willing to engage in conversation. And so he shared the story of this taking years. Now, here's another wonderful story. This is a father and his son. And I guess this father is a pretty big name in Sweden. He's well known and charismatic evangelical church in Sweden. He's written like 7 books, and this is his son Gabriel. And they shared their story. Gabriel shared his story of how he spent years in the closet as a gay Christian, and his church taught, his father taught, and the churches that he was a part of and worked for taught that God does not approve of being gay. And so he stayed in the closet, and he thought his heart was to serve
No, that's
Jesus
just
Christ,
fucked up.
and
That's
thought,
fucked up. That's
I'm
fucked up. That's fucking abuse. That's fucking abuse. This is exactly the fucking problem I have when people talk to me about Daryl Davis. People talk to me about Daryl Davis and I'm like, go fuck yourself. I used to be excited about Daryl Davis, but then I realized how fucked up his whole story is. Even if I buy his story on face value, he tried to learn about the KKK because he was afraid for his fucking life. He feared for his life. This is the alt-right playbook. The people that they oppress, the people that they marginalize, the people plenty of them would fucking kill, they think are obligated to stay, obligated to be in relationship with them, obligated to remain in the church, obligated to remain faithful to the group. And then you do what it takes to win them over in spite of the fact that they hate you. In the closet for years for what? Why was he in the closet for years? I guarantee you he was in the closet for years because of the abuse within the church. Because he knew it wasn't safe. And then after years of having to fucking hide from these people, now we're supposed to celebrate, oh no, stay with them, talk to them, change their mind. No, fuck them. That's the problem. I don't have a problem with anybody doing it. If that's really what you want to do, fine. But is that really going to be the standard? Is that really what we're going to be? Is that a reasonable thing to ask of people? I don't think it is. If you do it, fine, you do it. Apparently you really just love your oppressors that much. But again, I just think for most people, just getting the hell out of there is gonna get you on the road to redemption much, much faster.
Going to have this testimony of God delivering me from being gay. And so he prayed and prayed for years for God to deliver him from being gay. And God never answered that prayer. Thankfully, he started encountering some Christians like Matthew Vines, and he went on a search, and he eventually became affirming of himself. And his father also became affirming. So they just held a conference in Sweden to
Steph went to go do
advance
the murder
LGBTQ
thingy.
inclusion in the church. And so anyway, it was amazing to hear their testimony. And okay, this is the last person I'm going to mention. Karen Keene was a speaker. Now, Karen Keene has written 3 books, great books. Well, actually, I'm in the midst of reading one of them. One of them I haven't read, one of them I have. But the best thing that I've seen from Karen Keene is her video course, Scripture and Sexual Ethics. So that's available on the Reformation Project. That video course is the best Christian teaching on sexuality that I've ever heard. It's not just about being LGBTQ. It is also a wonderful, wonderful teaching about sexuality for heterosexuals. Okay, so if you want to get a better understanding of like, why did God make sex? What is sex all about? This woman will blow your mind. I think she's one of the best Bible teachers on earth today. And what an awesome thing how one of the best Bible teachers on earth is a lesbian. God has a sense of humor. You know, he likes to take people who have been despised, rejected, and to exalt them and lift them up and anoint them. And he has completely anointed
And again,
this woman.
and again, it's just like Uncle Bobby said with the pranksters. That's supposed to be God's sense of humor. God can go fuck himself. That's not funny. That's not funny. What is funny about the fact that this woman is a lesbian means she was literally marginalized and oppressed by the church as she was studying to become a biblical scholar. What part of that is funny? But this shows you where Rebekah's at. where she's willing to use the lives and stories of gay people as a pawn for her Christian marketing. It's about using their pain to shame non-affirming Christians rather than getting them away from the people who caused them their pain. And this to me is why I just can't have this. This does not work. It feels to me, and again, I'm going to keep going back to that KKK reference. It feels like, because the KKK was a very popular organization at one point. Very celebrated in most communities. They were called the organization when you wanted to keep it quiet, and lots of well-meaning, well-to-do people were in the KKK. So it feels to me like all of a sudden you done found a few KKK members like, well, maybe we should include black people. And then I'm supposed to celebrate that there are black affirming KKK chapters. No, it's not going to happen. I don't want further generations to continue to suffer under Christofascism. And that's all this is. The other thing that is, I'm gonna go ahead and say a little ugly here, but I'm gonna just go ahead and say what I got to say since this is my channel. The only reason they're doing this is because it's not they're losing popularity. This is an attempt to stop the bleeding. This is about the culture outside of the church has progressed to the point that even non-LGBTQIA plus people are not willing to tolerate discrimination against those people. I hate to say it, but enough straight cis people have stopped holding their nose in church on Sunday morning. Oh, I really don't like, that was me, right? Y'all know how some of us was. Some of us like, oh, I really don't like the way it gets kind of funky in here when y'all start talking about gay people, right? We closed our ears when they started talking about gay people. Oh, this wasn't the sermon for me. Because a lot of y'all was like me. Y'all been affirming, y'all been allies, y'all been, treating gay people like everybody else, even when you were a Christian. But when that stench should have made us leave the church, we just kind of ignored it. And that's on us. That's on us, including myself. That is a moral failing. Straight up. Ain't no other way to put it. But now the meta of public morality has moved a little bit. It's gotten incrementally better to the fact that more people are taking a stand and they don't tolerate that anymore. And so now this is an attempt to stop the bleeding and stop the leaving. And that's why I oppose this. Because I don't want the church to be rebranded feminist, anti-racist, pro-LGBTQ, because it's a lie. And the only reason they want to change those things is to extend their dominance over society. Oh, it's, being anti-queer is not a good look anymore. Let's change our tone. So they've only gotten to this place because they have to. And they've only had to because of the shift in morality outside the church.
Woman is a great Bible teacher. So, and after I finish reading her book, The Word of a Humble God, I will probably do a review on that. But anyway.
And again, she's brainwashed and delusional. Look. master's in theology and biblical studies. Girl, you went to Duke and you didn't Duke very well. Girl, you went to Duke and you left with some BS. You went to one of the best schools in the country and left with a degree in hogwash. Then MA in exegetical theology. Y'all, that whole thing is Christianese right there. Theology is just philosophy of religion when religion doesn't hold up philosophically. And exegeting the text is literally like interpretation, right? So literally, would anybody be impressed with a master's of science in religious interpretation? Because that's what we should say. When people say exegetical theology, religious interpretation, am I supposed to be impressed that you went to a seminary and got an MS in religious interpretation? An MS in education so she can miseducate people. And then look at this. Look at her video course. Look at her stuff. Scripture and sexual ethics. All I got to say to her is Dr. Bird. That's all we got to say. When Karen King, when I can see you go one-on-one with Dr. Bird, then I'll be impressed, because that's somebody who talks about scripture and sexual ethics. But no.
Her book, The Word of a Humble God, I will probably do a review on that. But anyway, so those were the speakers of the conference. Some of the speakers. There's a lot more that I didn't mention that were wonderful. You know, they had panels at this conference where gay and trans people were answering questions and sharing their experiences. And it was just hundreds of people from all over the country and even
Christianity
out of the US,
is bad for your sex
the
life, just saying.
That came together in worship. Oh my gosh, the worship.
We
worshiped every day. And, you know, it was the most authentic and spirit-filled worship that I've experienced in a corporate setting in years.
But again, they would, in case y'all missed it earlier, Asbury Revival, fundamentalists rejected it because gays were involved in the worship. And trans people and they marking these people and they got up and like, hey, it's time for gay worship. Everybody stand up on your feet. It's time for gay worship in his name. Yes, gay worship. Oh, would you like to stay on your knees for gay worship? Well, you know it's gay worship. You can stay on your they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They just got up there and it was like, shout to the Lord, all the earth, let us sing. Yeah, I sang that deliberately awful. All right, but look. So this is the delusion. This is the delusion. You said God was in the house. You was doing the mighty work of the Lord. You were feeling his presence. Y'all were worshiping every day. Most Christians won't even knowingly accept them in worship. Y'all, that's the reality.
So much of God's love, so much of God's presence. So the worship was awesome. And, you know, I got to be me more than I have been in years, because one of my favorite things to do is just be able to pray for people. So I was just like going around at this conference, like looking for people who needed prayer. And it was just wonderful to see like people experience God's presence in prayer. And there were just so many things that God did during the conference to connect people. So I'm just going to share one of my God encounters at this conference that I just, and there were others, but some of them may be, you know, more personal for people. So I'm not going to share them, but this one was just, you know, some people may look at it as a coincidence, but I see God all over this. So during the lunch break for the conference, I was going with my friend Taya, who came with me. She's my best friend from high school. She came with me to the conference, and we were going to go, we're going to have lunch at the hotel. And when we got our food and we were sitting down at the table. I felt like I should sit on the same side of the table as her in case anybody wanted to come and sit with us. It was a 4-person table. And then just as we sat down, I thought, no, I need to do more than that. There may be someone who needs someone to eat lunch with. So I was like, I'll be right back. And I went out into the hotel lobby just to see if there was like anyone that looked like they needed someone to eat lunch with. And I saw this young guy, young gay guy that I had met 2 days before at the conference. And I had talked to him for a little while, and we had exchanged numbers. I probably exchanged numbers with 10 people, during the conference. So, I didn't expect to really see him or contact him again because, there were hundreds of people there. But I saw him standing out in the lobby, and I was like, hey, and I won't mention his name because I didn't ask him if I could share this, but I said, hey, do you want to come have lunch with us? And he said, yes. And he was like so happy that we invited him to lunch. He was sitting with us and he was like, yeah, I'm really glad that it worked out for us to have lunch because, it's hard for me to make friends. And, I just was feeling, he didn't have anyone to eat lunch with. And he said, so that's why I sent you the message. And I'm glad you, got my message or whatever. And I said, no, I didn't get your message. And of course, I had my phone on silent because the conference, so I hadn't looked at my phone at all, since the conference let out for lunch. So I looked at my phone and he had sent me a message asking if I could have lunch with him. So it was just awesome because I wouldn't have seen that message until after lunch, maybe even the end of the day, because I wasn't paying attention to my phone at all. But God cared about this young guy not having anyone to eat lunch with.
That
Isn't that
story
beautiful?
sounds
God cared
sus. Because first off, I don't know. Some of them details you're like, did you really not see it though? But did you really not see it though? But just not even to be petty about it. This is somewhere. This is not the easiest stream I've ever done on Rebekah. Let's keep it real. Because like I said, personally, I think on an interpersonal level, I think it's far better that she is affirming than the alternative, right? This is more me looking back at the meta and just being like, this isn't going where homegirl thinks it's going. But what this part has really made me realize is that all of this has that pastoral field trip feel to it. To me, I've talked about this before, but like, y'all ever gone to one of the churches and you hear like the pastor always talks about like a trip he went on, and he was having some experience, but it all just ties too neatly into his sermon series. And then it takes you a while to realize that he probably went on that trip to have that experience, knowing how he was going to fold it into a sermon, or at least anticipating that. And that's the vibe that this has to me. But at the same time, like, Rebekah's really about that life, right? She's been passionate in her sort of affirming LGBTQ people. I really appreciate it. Like, I'm sure, I've spoken to people in the community who like really appreciate it. So I don't want to, I want to make sure that's out there. And that puts me in a strange place. It puts me in a strange place, because I was an affirming Christian, right? So I'm shitting all over it, but I don't want people to think that's like I don't get it. Like, I was a Christian. I was all about those people. I honestly, I just didn't take the Bible when it talked about those things that seriously. It wasn't really a problem for me because I wasn't a person who was like a biblical literist, or you had to take everything in the Bible literally anyway, right? And I would have just been the first to tell you, oh, those are some rules some very bigoted men wrote down in a book, and there's no reason to think we ought to live like that. what's happened since is, I've lost my faith. I've deconverted, become sort of outspoken in my atheism, and now, reconciling with a different perspective. It's like I had to accept that it was actually bigotry in that the faith does, like it. So it's like that's why I'm in a weird place. It's like, of course I'm it's better that she's affirming than not, but at the same time I think she's in that space of denial about what's really going on, and I was in that space too. And I think it was better to move beyond that, because it isn't about how comfortable you are as a Christian or how comfortable you are, with scripture or whatever, right? It should really, at the end of the day, start to really be about the marginalized people, the people that are the victims of the discrimination, the violence, and the horror. And I don't think it's right to essentially, gaslight them about the faith, and then, want to invite them into a community that ultimately we can kind of predict isn't really going to be safe for them, because you'll feel better about yourself. I think if ever there would be a reconciling with the church should actually have some accountability and change first. But I don't think that's happening. I don't think it's gonna happen.
He was alone for lunch. God knew I wasn't going to see my message, and God still sent me to go and invite him to lunch. So that was just, for me, one of the beautiful experiences. There were so many, and just the people I met, and just a place that was really filled with the Spirit of God and a very loving, welcoming presence. So that was my experience for
Thanks
the weekend,
for
and I want to see what
watching
some of your comments and
1720.
questions are now. So let's see what's going on, and I really hope people are not being negative. I know that there were some, and so I don't know if I have any mods here, but I probably need to make some mods to wow. Okay. Yeah, I will block the preacher.
Gone.
The preacher
Gone.
was being pretty negative. Okay, so hello to Jerome Robinson. Glad you're here. And Kevin, I already said hi to Kevin. And let's see. Oh my goodness, Dr. Joshua Megan is here. Awesome. So glad to see you. Well, I hope the comments in the chat, the negative comments, were not too distracting for you guys to be able to hear. Bro guy is here. Awesome. Yeah, sorry that the
Rebecca is
preacher
actually
was here
showing the
being
love of Christ.
negative,
Preacher is only showing
but
condemnation.
I'm so glad all of you are here. Thank you for watching.
Ugh.
And
Ugh.
Digital Hammurabi said, have you and I ever had a debate? Don't know who he's talking to. Maybe me or someone else. I don't think. Okay. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just trying to see if anybody has a substantive comment or question, and it's a little hard to keep up with all these. So anyway, guys, what can I say? It was an amazing time. Andre says, Rebecca, you are awesome. I love your understanding of the presence of God, and I love to hear that you had a great time. Thank you. Yeah, I wish you could have been there. I wish everyone could have been there. And I thought it was still going to be available to purchase for streaming, but it's not. So I can't even recommend that you guys go and watch what it was. Jerome Robinson says, did you say hello to Brooke Eden while you were there? I really like some of her music. Oh, good. You know her music. You know, I didn't get to say
y'all
hello
see
to
what
her,
Jerome Robinson is
but
about.
she did like share her story
Oh, the
and play her
bootlicking
music,
of
and so did
Jerome
Ty Herndon.
Robinson.
So that was
Oh,
really
gang, it's good to know some things never change, right?
awesome. And Humble Thinker said, was it the conference at North Point? No. That conference was the unconditional conference. That happened the week.
No, it wasn't preacher. Some preacher, I think, was a Christian who was coming through and didn't agree with what she was saying and was being obnoxious in the chat. But they seemed kind of like like maybe part of that lolcow crowd. I kind of like they were repeating themselves and just kind of being like antagonistic with people. Like, yeah, it didn't seem like they were genuinely there to engage anyway.
Before in Georgia, this was in Nashville, Tennessee, and so it was, yeah, really, a couple conferences happened all at once. But yeah, I heard about the conference at North Point. I heard that was wonderful too. I think people were a little disappointed with Andy Stanley's sermon the next day, and there was a lot of talk about that at this conference. So Kevin says, not substantive, but keep being you and keep being awesome. Thank you. And so I just want to say, for Christians who may not be sure about whether or not they should be affirming of gay Christians and same-sex, relationships, I hope that you will enter into a time of wrestling with this with God, because there are people who are struggling right now, who don't want to be gay, who their greatest desire is to serve Jesus Christ.
And again, like that's just like what, like, they're like swinging a miss. I don't know. They're just not there, and it's so weird. Like, I don't. Can y'all tell Christianity really creeps me out? But like, their greatest desire is to serve Christ. It's like, marginalized people don't need this cult shit. Like, we don't need it. We don't need it. Especially not from the group of people that have been oppressing us the most. It's insane.
And they've been taught that they shouldn't be gay, but their desires to serve Christ, it's not to live a life of sin. So enter into their experience.
They
Have
love to pretend.
compassion. Think about their experience. Listen to their experience, and then go to God with that. That is what I did, and that's how I became affirming. It is, and it's not, just this thing that I quickly embraced. Okay, I had to really ask God what the truth was on this issue and really wrestle through the arguments on both sides. So it's understandable if it takes time to really hear from God, but please do have that experience, because there are people, and if you that need you to do that. Too many people at this conference shared with me their experience of rejection by the church. And if we are going to reject people from the church, people whom God loves, we better be absolutely sure that we're right. And in this case, we have been, or broadly speaking, we have been wrong. Now, I say that broadly speaking because there are.
That was actually really good. I agree with everything she said right there. They've been wrong about this. they've been wrong since the beginning. Yeah, I mean, again, like the world is a big place, but it's kind of simple for us now. Like most of us know, like there's no reason to be prejudiced or bigoted against any particular group, and that when you do that, you're wrong. And fortunately, we don't have a creed or doctrine telling us to do that. So sometimes it's a personal or whatever issue, but it's not coming down from on high. But I'm gonna let her finish up. But like that, she was. I think she was being really sincere there. And this is funny. Like I'm like she gets me to click on these things, and then I'm like I'm back to beating up Rebekah, and it's questionable. It's questionable, but in actuality, like when it comes to this issue, I support where she's coming from personally. So there's critique, but at the end of the day, like, it's not like her talking about young earth creationism and all this other stuff where, I'm like violently angry at her. So this is a weird feeling going through my body right now, gang.
Are many Christian denominations that have affirmed LGBTQ Christians for years, have ordained them, have embraced them, and affirmed same-sex relationships. So this is by no means all of Christianity, but in evangelical Christianity, conservative evangelical Christianity, which is the type of Christian, I guess, sect or group that I grew up in, broadly speaking, there has been a non-affirming stance toward LGBTQ Christians. And so that is what I'm asking you to challenge within yourself. And, take some time to listen, not only to the experience, but how about listening to the Bible teaching of some gay, trans, and queer Christians? Because there are Christians, I guarantee you, there are queer Christians who love God way more than you do, and who have been anointed to teach the Bible, to proclaim the good news about Jesus Christ. And God is working very powerfully through them. This conference was a great example of that. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching. And I guess I really don't know what else to say, but so Jerome Robbins says that's good to know that all of the atheists are now unbanned. Forgot to mention that, haven't been here in ages. Okay, wait a minute. I need to talk about this. Okay. So, and maybe I need to do a stream that's just a heart-to-heart with atheists that I banned. I have not unbanned all atheists, okay?
Yeah,
because
I don't think I've been. I'm not on the
want
unbanned
toxicity
list
on my channel, and
I'm
I know there was
toxic, I
toxicity
guess.
from some Christians in this chat, and I will ban them later. But I don't want toxicity. I don't want abuse on my channel. So I'm not unbanning all the atheists. And I also don't want blasphemy on my channel. Okay, I want this to be a place where
I'm a toxic
God's
blasphemer,
presence is
y'all.
welcome.
I'm not welcome.
Is free, and where people are free to seek God without being abused or scared in the chat of people who are going to argue with them and come against them. So I have not unbanned all atheists, but I will tell you that it has been a really hard couple of months for me since I banned atheists, because I did not want to do that. For those of you who know, I've had a couple of years of, I never wanted to block anyone. I had only blocked like 2 people, and that was mostly for like asking for money, from people on the chat. But like, I always wanted it to be a free space where people could share their mind. And there's so many atheists that I love that watched my channel and supported my channel, and I still love them. And that's what's been hard about banning atheists, is because
Do
I
you miss
still
us?
have a desire to connect with them, but I also don't want to have my work stopped or halted because of the things that they're writing in the chat. So anyway, that's
Yeah,
been
you know what? It's funny that this conversation came up. I think I fit comfortably in that picture. Like, y'all know she's banned me because you know, we've beefed like that. But at the same time, Rebecca and I think, like, get along in the sense that, like, you know, we've done stuff before. We can you know, we can set our differences aside and have conversation if that's what is we're called on to do. So I just like don't even take it personally. But I used to say that she should ban most of the atheists, that she should just take her channel and focus on, you know, speaking to her Christian audience or whatever. And I think she's done that. And from what I've seen in her chat, it's been, you know, reasonably effective. I guess the activity overall is probably a little bit less, but that's going to happen when you know, piece out a lot of your audience. But it is more positive and like encouraging to her, and it feels like the type of people she wants to reach are more comfortable in her channel. You know, that's just my analysis from like a stream perspective. Like, I'm kind of into thinking about that because there's, yeah, like, y'all know, like, I used to I'm like, I started on Twitch, right? And it's weird that on like YouTube, you know, there's like the whole debate me bro culture that a lot of people are in, so people are used to kind of being antagonistic towards a stream, even like dominating a stream with antagonism towards the broadcaster. Whereas like on Twitch, it's like if you're not cheering along and like making the streamer feel good, like, why would they want to see messages from you in their chat? So they tend to time out people who annoy them and ban them if they do it more than once, or their mods do. So I'd always just kind of be thinking to myself, like, she doesn't have to take this, you know, like, if it's not fun to deal with that, like, don't deal with it. I'm kind of that way over here. Like, I want to interact with people that think differently than we do, that disagree and all that type of stuff. Like, I'm totally with it. But unfortunately, most of the people that come through with a different perspective are like trolls, or they're jerks, or they're weird, or they're like, you know, they're not really engaging in a reasonable fashion. So I just get rid of them because it's irritating. But yeah, you know, obviously it's like, as one of those banned atheists, it's funny, and of course we could take shots like, oh, she's creating an echo chamber and all of this, but there's nothing she's doing is outside of her prerogative as a content creator, and in fact is what I've been thinking for a long time she should do. So even though, you know, I'm someone who used to enjoy good old live heckling of Rebecca, I certainly don't hold anything against her for banning us.
Thing that I've really, really wrestled with, and if you
What just happened?
I just really want people to know I am not personally rejecting anyone. Like, it was really a hard decision to make, and maybe I,
Yes,
you know, didn't
Sumami.
fully think through the consequences of banning people, because I never wanted anyone to feel that, you know, I didn't care about them, and I do. Like, I wish there was another way we could connect, but I just don't want people to be abused or scared to ask questions about God on my channel. And unfortunately, a lot of atheists did make it a place where it was hard for people. Oh my gosh, even Nathan's here. Wow. Oh, cool. Why are you like crying? I don't know. I'm not crying. Anyway, I don't know if he's talking to somebody else. So Jerome was not banned though. I don't think you were ever banned. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. And if you didn't see the beginning, then please watch again and hear all about the conference. And take care. It's good to see some of you that haven't.
All
I
right,
haven't seen.
all right. So, gang, I told y'all it's a weird one. I told y'all I don't know if it's a trick or a treat. This is definitely a situation of like mixed opinion, and I feel myself becoming actually like more sympathetic to her side because I've been able to kind of work through like why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And yeah, I think for me, the first thing was sort of like distinguishing realms of influence, right? Like thinking of people as not just like, you know, having sort of like one all-encompassing social circle, but different, sometimes overlapping or distinct social circles, right? And so one, it's like, again, I think it's better that Rebekah's affirming than the alternative. It's amazing that I have to say it, but I'm going to say it in case anybody says isn't clear about it. It's a genuine statement. I don't want her to turn around and become a conservatard or more of a conservatard on this issue. The second thing is then her like actual willingness to like go there with other Christians, right? Because that's the thing for most of us is like, okay, we're glad that you're saying the right thing, but I was thinking about this like a few days ago. I don't remember why. I remember just being upstairs thinking about this. Because I do think about the stuff way too much on my own time. I think a lot of Christians, when it comes to correcting the church's stance on social issues, they support or they show allyship on a very small scale. Sometimes they don't express it at all. Sometimes they just go along with things, but in their own mind, they don't, hate this or that group or whatever. But maybe they express that sort of supportive opinion to, friends and family, like other individuals that they know, right? But then a lot of times when they're sort of in corporate workshop, well, look at me fucking using Christianese. When they're with the group, when they're in the church, they're supporting probably a church that isn't affirming in a lot of cases, and then they're donating money to that church and helping them on a do whatever their agenda on a bigger scale is. They're supporting politicians a lot of times who are problematic, right? And so I started to think about that balance, right? That we act in different spheres, and you want to kind of match, I think, your influence or be consistent, because that's something to think about. If you only show allyship on a small tip, but then you're, contributing to large scale problems, that's not really ideal. So to that extent, right, like Rebekah is actually trying to address the problem in the church, like in a way that a lot of people aren't. And she's doing it publicly. So I like give her credit for that. And she's clearly passionate about this. Like she's made a lot of content about this. She's definitely assumed some risk to her channel or whatever in doing so. And again, she seems to really be about that life. That's kind of what I was bringing up with like the pastoral field trip. Like, you know, it did feel like Rebekah went to a gay Christian conference on like some pastoral field trip type of adventure. But at the same time, like, you know, that's about that life. Like that's you know, really doing it and trying to get out there. And so like I want to like give her flowers for that. And that's what I mean. I kind of felt myself like softening as I was like listening to her. I'm sitting there like, you know, like I don't want to beat her up for her personal stance on this, because I do think she's sincere in her effort to help. Boom, there it is. What I'm dealing with is sort of also, though, reacting to what I feel is like the propagandizing for the church. That bothers me. And like I said, it bothers me with new eyes, because I used to be an affirming Christian. And I feel like, this is going to sound weird, but I feel like affirming personally was a way of sweeping it under the rug, right? Like, that's why I struggle with that. Because when I look back at myself, it was like, well, I wasn't bigoted. And then, you know, if, you know, I had friends and, you know, I didn't support anything weird or whatever. But that didn't get me to stop supporting the organization and stop supporting the church. And now I feel like I should have. And so in a way, being affirming just helped me sweep it under the rug rather than deal with it. Like, rather than be like, no, this is a prejudiced organization. No, you know, no, this whole thing is really fucked up for our LGBTQI fam. Like, this is some serious shit. I was able to be like, well, no, I don't have any problem with them, and then everything's good to go. And so that's the reaction to like the conference. And again, it just feels like they get together and again, like I'm sure I'm glad that they did, right? Like, I'm sure if you know, if I have a rational sort of assessment of the situation, you're like, yeah, you know, church needs to work on this. Y'all need to get organized. You know what I'm saying? Maybe y'all need to have some events, you know, start to, you know, really figure out how y'all gonna disseminate this message and get a little game plan together. So again, like, it's, you know, I'm just making content reacting to it, but in reality, I don't have a problem with the fact that they had the conference. It's just that from my perspective now, it just feels like Christ washing. It just feels like, hey, we'll get together where it's safe, be really excited about the fact that, you know, we've created this safe space for this issue, all while ignoring you know, the bigger picture of what's really happening, especially because I feel like it's so critical right now, right? Like, we talked about the new Speaker of the House, or all of the anti-LGBTQ legislation. I mean, and that's addition to the regular routine threats of the violence and the regular everyday social discrimination and all the stupid shit with sports and trans healthcare and all this type of madness. To me, it's like really important to not trivialize all of it and be like, oh, it's all good, you know, you're welcome in the church, da 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 da. And it reminds me of something that actually James used to talk about with Rebekah. And he'd almost refer to it as like, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it's kind of like the danger of somebody like Rebekah. because they're the really sweet Christian, they're the really nice Christian, but at the end of the day, she doesn't really care about, you know, the nuances of what a particular person believes or practices, as long as they're claiming Jesus. And so she may seem perfectly reasonable, but her goal is to send people just into whatever church. And when most people go into their local church or whatever, you know, they're going to be dealing with a whole different sort of person. And that's kind of what this issue made me think of. Like, damn, it made me feel like, yeah, okay, y'all get together this conference, that's all good. But what are y'all just, you know, encouraging the people that are dealing with this issue to just go back to church and just tell everybody they should be affirming? Because again, it's like you're sending them back into harm's way, because we're not willing to come to terms with the reality of the harm that's been done to them and who's doing it. And I think I also felt some kind of way about my own reckoning that I do think the church has had these prejudices in its core. I don't buy those mistranslation arguments. I think the church is prejudice. I think it's the core of this particular prejudice, at least in America. You know, the church and the religiously right, conservative motivated people or whatever, like they've had their signature all over this. And so it feels wrong to just let the same organization or members of the same organization try to pull a 180 and be like, oh no, like it's all good now. But yeah, with that, I'm gonna probably leave it at that, because that's what it came down to at the end of the day, is like distinguishing the spheres of influence. Like, me personally, as a former Christian, I don't think this effort's gonna work. I think it's potentially puts more people in harm's way, and if nothing else, it doesn't really deal with and acknowledge the issue. And I think the church is prejudiced, and I think that's it's going to be hard to get away from that, especially with what's written in the scriptures. But at the same time, it's like, I'm glad she's affirming. I'm glad that she's trying to make a difference in the church with regard to this issue. Like I said, she's definitely been willing to take some of the risk and cost of doing so. Yeah, and you know, I don't want to crap on that. And I'm glad they're doing the conference, and I'm kind of glad we got to see it, right? Like, you know, it's definitely, you know, clickbait for sure. But you know, I'm glad we clicked on it, and it was interesting to see what that organization is doing. And ultimately we're on their side, right? We all want LGBTQ people to be fully accepted and integrated into society wherever they go, and that includes the church. But yeah, I'm anti-church. Y'all know me. I'm anti-church, so I'm not trying to encourage anybody to go back to church. I'm like, look, I think of it as like the ex-boyfriend, right? And to me, the church is like the ex-boyfriend that people have realized they've been beating up on the partner, and now he's trying to send flowers and dates and chocolates and all this type of shit. And it's like, it's a little too late, my guy. And you know, that I'm not with that. But but for me, that's my thing, right? Is nah. You just get your people out of there. You don't deal with that. But who knows? Who knows? Yeah, Lita says she's a Nazi groomer. They all are. Yeah, exactly. So for me, I'm more like, okay, so now that we realize what's been happening, it's time to talk about the fact that he's also been lying to you all these years, right? And that's where I'm at with Christianity. It's not a good thing. It's all lies. It's all coercion, and we don't need to find excuses to keep people in coercive organizations. We need to get them out of coercive organizations. But yeah, we don't want to. We don't. It's a weird issue, y'all. It's a fucking strange one. Like I said, stranger danger. Was it a trick? Was it a treat? I don't really know. Definitely got mixed feelings about it. But look, happy Halloween, y'all. Appreciate everybody for showing up. It's great to see everybody. Love you guys. I hope you're having a fun Halloween. I'll see you next time. I'm headed back to Gatherland. Come join us. There's a link in the description. It says link up with the gang. Come hang out if you want to come kick it. That's where we're at. In the nighttime and during the day for like our virtual office. So you're always welcome to come through. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Love you guys so much. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment if you're watching.